We're at Santa Pod at the MOPAR EURONATIONALS for the second Comanche Racecars UK Top Sportsman round of the year. The 3-day MOPAR Euronats is Europe's biggest American car show, drawing visitors from right across the continent. There's a ton of run what you brung and some pretty special cars in show and shine. Now, UK Top Sportsman is unique in European drag racing because there are no class rules, only safety ones. It's open to any door car right up to pro modified spec. Also, it comprises two separate competitions, a bracket or handicap race on day one, and then a flat-out heads-up race on day two. And for 2015, we've got 35 really varied and interesting cars entered, so it's going to be quite a competition. Usually in drag racing, drivers get several qualifying runs to set their car up for the conditions and form the elimination ladder. For Top Sportsman, it's different. There's just one test run before elimination starts, and that's random pairings. So unlike the traditional ladder, there's no easy first round for the top qualifiers. This really shakes up the form book, and in the 4 years the series has run, no one's ever won twice. Well, unfortunately, race day one was completely rained off with over 15 hours of heavy rain falling. So as we go into day two, we just saw the track staff with a jet dryer out getting the track ready for the first test run. We caught up with a few of our competitors. Darren Peart brought along his Mark III Cortina.
Yeah, it's going pretty well. We're just getting it to run quick now, really. Just a few tuning issues we've had over the years. But we're getting to the bottom of everything now, and it should be, hopefully this year, we should be into the sevens, hopefully.
I know it used to have a Rover-based engine. What's he running at the moment?
It's actually got a Rover V8 back in it now. Yeah, it was a Chevy, but now it's back as a Rover. It is a Rover V8 now.
Well, this is Darren burning out on track prior to his allotted test run.
The chassis is pretty spot on, to be honest. It's just engine issues I've been having. Mainly pistons. We had some weak pistons in it, but now we've got some really good pistons, so hopefully it should take it. But the chassis is pretty much set up for it now, yeah.
It's great to see UK Top Sportsman attracting so many new teams.
Yeah, it's our first time in it. Yeah, really excited for it, yeah. Hopefully we'll be running it again at the next event, yeah. Try and keep into it, yeah.
So here's Darren in the left lane up against Lee Huxley and putting in a nice mid-8 second test run here. Another long-term racer that's entered this weekend is Des Taylor.
We built it originally in 2009 for the 2010 season at York. We won the Pro ET class at York.
Des is running a 1970 Chevy Nova called Motown Gold this weekend.
Yeah, got a good chance in the bracket race, but obviously I'd prefer to run in the heads-up race. The only thing, there's only really one way to run heads-up, and that's have the fastest car. We've got the best chance of beating everybody there. Oh yeah, Top Sportsman, I think Paul's done really well. It's a great class. Unfortunately, for me, it's very disappointing running a 10-second car instead of a 7-second car, so I'm only here to make the numbers up, really.
So Des's car is a bit down on power, but it's a proven competitor in bracket racing, especially up at York Raceway. Now, one of the attractions of UK Top Sportsman is that it brings together an eclectic mix of race cars, including this street-legal 7-second Stormer that wouldn't look out of place on a luxury car dealer's forecourt. Probably the fastest Bentley in the world, this 3,000 horsepower, 200 mile per hour machine is raced by Steve Mentas. Couple that with the twin-turbo WeMoveYourCar.com Rolls-Royce of Matt Wright, and we should be in for some really interesting matchups.
It's been out since last Top Sportsman, I think, last year. Yeah, we cracked the block. So we've we rebuilt it. Terry Robbins has rebuilt the engine for me, and it's all good.
What are we hoping for this weekend? Obviously you haven't had much chance to run it on track. Are you going to take it easy, or is that not your style?
A to B, just want to get down the track. If we can get a mid-7 out of it, it'd be nice. I'm not going to lean on it at all. You know, we've got plenty to do with it.
And ultimate plans?
Plans, I'd like to do 200 mile an hour, and ultimately I'd like to drive it here from home, run a 7 and drive it home.
The other car in the WeMoveYourCar.com team is the Cortina of Malcolm Cook. At the last round, the car suffered a major incident with the gearbox actually breaking free from its mountings and spinning round inside the cab.
It all happened so quick. Shifted to second gear and everything just came up in the gearbox. We've got chunks of metal about 4 inches wide, and there was transmission fluid everywhere. And it was all so quick. You turn everything off and bring it to a standstill. Oh yeah, this is what it's all about for me, sort of fun. We're hoping to run a 9-second pass, be my fastest, my new personal best as well. So every run I've done in this has been personal best for me. My car before was totally street legal, same as this, and it's all due to our hard work, Matt's hard work, and it's all looking good. It's all going to be good for the weekend.
Malcolm putting in a solid pass here. At least that should calm down the nerves after the last time. Two more cars you'd never expect to see racing each other. The wild VW Beetle of Bernie Newbury and the beautiful 55 Chevy Bel Air of Swiss competitor René Erishman.
Okay, this is a big block Chevy, all aluminium, with 615 cubic inch and one stage of NOS.
I've been out any meeting I can get to for fun, and the car has gradually come down from 99, 98, 97. Now it's best PB of 950 at 141. So it's things are good. Yes, and I just turned 70 earlier on this year, about 2 months ago. I turned 70, and while I can get in the car, I'm going to run it because I don't think I should give up yet.
Winner of the bracket race at round one was John Turner in the Greenfish Plymouth Barracuda. Not as powerful as the previous cars, but oh so consistent. Couple this with John's great reaction times and he'll be one to watch in the bracket race. Another consistent bracket racer is Simon Goff in the LAS Motorhomes backed late model Camaro. Simon's regularly one of the top cars in the highly competitive Super Pro ET Championships. Another overseas visitor is Thomas Haas from Switzerland with his very rapid Plymouth Valiant Signet. Also great to see Deborah Law in competition.
Top Sportsman gives me the opportunity to race heads up, which is great. Pit my wits against other people. I get to meet other people that I don't normally meet in my class. It's a wide variety of competitors and it's just excellent fun. It's well organised, opportunity to win money. At the moment we've not gone past 100 foot. This is debuting it this weekend because it is actually all completely new, chassis and everything. 60 foot times at the moment are indicative of low to mid sevens, but I'm not expecting that this weekend.
There was a bit of a mishap, wasn't there, some years back?
I may have got a little bit too close to the wall, which, well, when we bought the car, it didn't quite do what we wanted to. We had a new chassis on it anyway, and then at the Nostalgia Nats, it left the line and then went hard right and then kind of pivoted and nearly came back and we ended up in the wall.
Now, people say drag racing, well, you're just driving in a straight line, you just put your foot down, how hard can it be? But things, I presume with this amount of power, things happen so fast.
Yeah, this particular car pulls approximately 3.2, 3.5 Gs off the line. It does 0 to 60 in, at the moment, just under a second. So you don't have any time to react. And the problem there was I had a lot of wheel spin on the back, so the wheels at the back were going a lot faster than the front. So even though I had my foot on and off the brake and I was steering, it was still going where it wanted. It was all very embarrassing. You know, it's taken us 2 years to get to this point now, so yeah, I am careful with it. The car was built by Webster Race Engineering, so I'm taking John's advice, and at the moment we're just going slowly, catchy monkey. Our main idea this weekend is really just to get to the end of the track. If we can put a reasonable number down, then that would be good. But
And a good checkout pass here for Deborah. Solid launch, then feathering the power. And a welcome return to the track for Tim Mugridge in the 1968 Chevy Camaro.
We've had a little bit of time out. We broke the engine in 2012. We done 7 out of the 8 pistons. It worked out it was due to a faulty MSD Digital 7 unit, not retarding the timing. So we had 30 degrees of timing when we should have had 18. Rob Loring at Ice Automotive has rebuilt it all for us. New pistons, rings, honed, all new intake and exhaust valves, and we're ready to go. We're going to take baby steps with it because we haven't run it for a while. We're going to run a 330 to 400 feet out first pass just to check it out. We'll come back, read the plugs, get some data off the data logger, see where we're at. If everything looks good, on our second pass we will go for the 8th mile. I've followed this series for a few years that Paul's been doing this series, and thought I'll have a go at that, and very much looking forward to letting the clutch fly again.
Well, looking at some of our other competitors, and we've already seen the street legal twin turbo Bentley of Steve Niamantas. Now this car has run 7.3 second quarter miles at over 200 miles per hour, so definitely one to look out for this weekend in the heads-up race. And Steve Kellett's Mustang in the left lane debuted at round 1 and making similar power to the Bentley, so again it's going to be fast once it's fully sorted. Very competitive car and racer, and number 2 qualifier at this event last year is Belinda Bull in the Chevy pickup, and this low 7-second pass shows the team means business again this time round. And another beautifully turned out car, it's the Chevy shoebox of Rob Smallworth. Such a hard launching machine, and it's consistent too. Well, as we move towards round 1 of the bracket race, join us after the break for more UK Top Sportsman action. Welcome back to round 2 of Comanche Racecars UK Top Sportsman here at the MOPAR EURONATIONALS at Santa Pod. We've lost the whole of day 1 to the weather, but day 2 has dawned sunny and warm, and we're about to move into the first round of the bracket race. Well, the last few competitors take their allotted test runs, and this is the Spirac Racing Firebird of Neil Hunter. Nice 7-second pass there. Another ex-Supermod car, the Oldsmobile Cutlass of Kev Perkins, and once again he's one to look out for later on in the heads-up race as well. And finally, the winner of Event 1's heads-up race, Andy Fred Hone in the Granada Scorpio, but getting way out of shape on this pass. So the track's prepped and the cars are towed down the pairing lanes ready to race. The bracket race is open to all comers, no qualifying, with the first round pairings being completely random. And on the start line the tree operates on the Pro Tree system. This is very different from the usual Sportsman or Countdown tree that most Nationals bracket races are used to, and it certainly shakes things up a bit. And we're starting off with the bracket race. Now for this, drivers have to predict their final ET, their dial-in, and the timing computer will give a handicap on the Christmas tree starting lights. A good reaction time, consistent race car, and a skillful driver make the difference. Plus, of course, if you go faster than your dial-in, you break out and are disqualified, so no sandbagging. So here we have Steve Kellett in the twin Pro-Charged late model Mustang up against the very well-known car of Tom Atkinson. And Tom's away first in the Cortina but pulls a red light, automatically handing the win to Steve Kellett, who goes on to round 2. So that's one of the favourites out in round 1. Tom ran the numbers but threw it away at the hit. Terry Robbins in the red Chevy S10 runs alcohol fuel injector stacks through the bonnet of his self-built car. Jeff Cowley with the more traditional Chevy Chevelle. Not much to choose between them at the start line. Neck and neck down the quarter mile. And Terry takes it with a 9.41 on a 9.40 dial. I love this Mark III Cortina of Darren Peart. We don't see this team too often here at Santapod. Darren really has his work cut out here up against Steve Naumantas and his top speed automotive street eliminator 200 mph Bentley. Well, Darren's away first, manually shifting gears in his nitrous motor. A real driving job to get it straightened out. And he takes the win, 8.76 on his 8.30 dial there. Another David and Goliath pairing. Julian Davison burning out there up against another heavy hitter, Matt Wright in his twin-turbo Rolls-Royce. But problems for Matt, the car not sounding happy at all. Julian doing everything he needs to do to take him safely through. He's got that car very nicely dialed in. Malcolm Cook in the Cortina Estate up against Nick Curtis in the Paul Marston Racing Dodge Dart. The Mark III Cortina unfortunately has a small fluid leak spotted by Richard Bell, one of Santapod's ever vigilant start line crew, which gives Nick a bye run. Dialing in a 9.60, Nick runs bang on the money, so would have been tough to beat. That really is pretty impressive stuff over quarter of a mile. Nick was only out by 0.008 of a second. Winston Sewell from Kent in the immaculate Gimme 5 Cortina against the tremendously talented Kev Perkins in his world-famous Oldsmobile Cutlass. Kev competes with a nitrous-injected big block Chevy and a Lenco manual transmission. He'll be very tough to beat. It's a green light drag race, but look how far Winston's in front. You'd expect the gap to be closer by now. Yes, he's way too fast at the finish line, breaking out and handing the win to Kev Perkins. Jack Brewster in his alcohol-injected Pontiac Firebird and Dave Russell in the blown Marina van, the van with no name. Jack dials in an 8.3 and Dave an 8.78, so Dave got the green light first. Jack getting a little loose at three-quarter track and backing off, so Dave Russell takes the win, 8.81 on an 8.78 dial. Veteran racer Des Taylor from York Raceway joins us this year against one of the toughest teams in bracket racing, father Brian and son Lee Huxley. 1970 Chevy Nova closest to us, 1968 Dark Horse Mustang in the far lane. Good job on the start line by Des. The Mustang's in chase mode now. And you can see Lee just catch him at the finish line and drop the nose of the Mustang, but he's broken out by just 200, so it's Des into round two. Bad Bernie Newbury in his VW-powered stitch-up Beetle just got a much-needed replacement parts delivery from California days before this event. Gets a single as Tim Moore has transmission issues and can't make the start line. You can hear Bernie soaring through the gears in the Beetle, which is super light and quite a handful. 9.79 on that 9.60 dial. And all the way from Switzerland, Thomas and Natalie Haas with their Plymouth Valiant against Brian, the Professor Paintman. Oh no, after coming all that way, Thomas has problems and gets pushed back. Brian on a solo then runs his own race. Man and machine perfectly in tune. And he takes the win with an 8.80 on his 8.78 dial. Very nice. Well, a good matchup here at the MOPAR EURONATIONALS at Santapod Raceway. Plymouth Barracuda against Plymouth Barracuda. Body shapes changed quite a bit in just a couple of years. Royden Mitchell in the black 1968 Barracuda against John Turner, who incidentally won the Top Sportsman Fast Bracket race at the Back with Mods event earlier this year. Royden crosses the line first but breaks out by 0.2 and hands the win to John. LAS Motorhome's back Camaro of Simon Goff, who's consistently been a player in the Comanche Race Cars UK Top Sportsman Series, facing Al Golding in his Decree Absolute Vauxhall Firenze. Al used to call his car Grounds for Divorce, but now he is divorced, it's been renamed. But it's Simon, the package goth, who's got this one by the look of it, and 8.62 on his 8.50 dial. Pete Ewell in the 582 cubic inch Chevy Nova. The motor is literally fresh out of Kenny Coleman's dyno room, and Tyler Letchford in Dad Hall's 1968 Chevy Camaro. Wheels up launch for Pete, a 9.50 dial to Taylor's 8.01, so he got the head start. Well, Pete won't be too disappointed in losing, as that's a personal best, and Tyler moves on. There's quite a difference in body styles between these two and about 50 odd years. Belinda Bull in the ex-Bob Pinella 2004 Pro Stock truck facing Lee Darby in the 1952 Chevy pickup. A miscue from Belinda hands it to Lee, who moves on. Now a lot of pride riding on this one. Chris Newsom in the MG and Neil Hunter in his ex-IHRA Top Sportsman Pontiac Firebird. Same hometown of Chesterfield, and they even travel and pit together. Well, Chris will dine out for a long time on this one, beating Neil with a 9.12 on his 9.1 dial. Fred Hone in his nitrous-equipped big block Chevy-powered Granada Scorpio gets a bye run and clocks a very impressive time indeed. Breakouts don't matter on a solo, runs a 7.45 on his 7.49 dial at 181 miles per hour. Last pairing, Rob Smallworth with a masterfully controlled rolling burnout faces a virtually new car for Tim Mugridge, who, after a 3-year rebuild, is debuting here with us at the Comanche Racecars UK Top Sportsman event. Both stunning-looking cars, a real credit to their owners and teams. We're on board in the 1968 Camaro here. We see Rob out in front there as Tim powers up through the gears. Tim's off the power and Rob takes the win, 7.69 on his 7.60 dial. Well, let's have another look at that run from the outside. Very similar dial-ins, 7.5 against a 7.6, so they leave the line just a tenth of a second apart, and you can see the Camaro getting out of shape there as Rob powers on through to take the win. So that's the first round of the bracket race done and dusted, and in bracket racing, consistency is everything. Unlike many of the racers who use a Chevy-based automatic gearbox system, Tim uses a Lenco, a fully manual high horsepower rated unit.
That's right, we run the Lenco 4-speed, so from the start line we are in first gear. It's the same as a road car, that's manual. You've got the clutch down, you've got the throttle fully down. The MSD will hold it on a rev limit. We launched this at 6,600 RPM. When the lights count down and it's time to go, the left foot comes up, not very far, probably only an inch. That is engaged drive. The car launches. 1.1 seconds later, I have to pull a lever for second. About another second later, third gear comes up. We wait a little while longer for fourth gear, but I'm done shifting. I'm in fourth gear, 4.76 seconds. After that, it's just 1-to-1 ratio through the finish line. If we pulled the gear early, the clutch would probably slip a little bit. So yes, it would slow us down slightly. Our shift point is 7,600 RPM. We have to shift it there to keep the clutch locked up. We have a little bit of slippage when we initially let the clutch go on the start line. But once that's locked up, we want to keep it locked up. We don't want any slippage.
And that brings us on to Elimination Round 2. So join us after the break for more UK Top Sportsman action. Welcome back to Comanche Racecars UK Top Sportsman at the MOPAR EURONATIONALS at Santa Pod. 17 cars and teams made it to round 2, and that's where we pick up the action. So our first pairing is Bernie Newbury in his 122 cubic inch VW Beetle Stitch Up, and he's facing Chris Newsom in the big block Chevy powered MG ZS. Bernie's probably one of the most experienced drag racers in the country, used to running heads up though. Obvious start line advantage going to Bernie, but this doesn't look like his usual 9-second form. No, Chris powers on past him and takes the win with a 9.34 on a 9.1 dial-in. Steve Kellett in his 2007 twin pro-charged Ford-powered Mustang gets an easy round win when Taylor Letchford is a no-show. This car has so much potential. The Stang Racing team still setting the car at remember. Scoreboard has to think about it, and it's an 8.06 on a 7.9 dial. Des Taylor takes on Terry Robbins in this round 2 matchup. Des will get the advantage on the start line, and Terry Robbins' WeMoveYourCar.com backed Chevy S10 will be chasing. Des dialing in a 10.9, Terry a 9.40. 1.5 second difference on the tree. You can see that difference there. Des out in front the whole way with Terry closing rapidly. Des takes the strike but breaks out. He goes too quick and Terry Robbins goes through. Julian Davison in his 100E Ford Pop takes on Brian the Professor Pateman. Both these drivers being very successful in UK Top Sportsman competition thus far. Julian will be anxious to cut a good light here, brings the revs up very early, and it's a green light drag race. But in going up on the launch chip a little early, Julian overheated his clutch and Brian takes an easy win. You can see him visibly slowing there, coasting through with a 12-second run. Racing against Brian, you have to try something. Darren Peart in that Tiger Paint Ford Cortina with a great burnout, getting the tyres hot and sticky, and Kev Perkins having problems with his burnout. Let's see how this one plays out. The burnout's such an important part to the start line procedure. Sometimes if it doesn't go right, drivers go back for another go, but Kev must be happy enough. Darren away first with an 8.3 dial, Kev a 7.60. Lack of burnout doesn't seem to be bothering him. Close at the finish line, but Kev just takes it by a couple of feet. Huge smoky burnout from Dave Russell in one of the craziest cars in national event drag racing, and John Turner in the super consistent Barracuda. The handicap has John leaving first, but that Marina van is so loud that John will hear Dave long before he sees him. The van's chasing hard. He has to make sure he doesn't break out. And he doesn't. Dave takes the win and moves on, taking out an off-the-pace John Turner there. Nitrous-equipped DKM construction pickup of Lee Darby closest to us. He has his work cut out for him in this one. Simon Goff in the late model Camaro is super consistent and good on the tree. But Lee has that nitrous that can match and beat Simon to the stripe. Super close race this one, and it should be in bracket racing, and it's Simon who takes the win and moves on. Lee Darby breaking out. Nick Curtis qualified number 1. After last round, winning times were all put into the eliminations ladder, so Nick gets the bye run. Just as well as a small miscue on the start line sees him off his dial-in time by 0.3. In bracket racing, that's a big margin. This will be a monster matchup. Rob Smallworth's Chevy against Fred Hone's Granada. Both cars run big block Chevys with a lot of nitrous and can run deep into the 7-second zone. These two have been racing each other for so many years now. Well, Rob got the drop at the start line for sure. Both very similar dial-ins. And he runs a 7.412 on a 7.41 dial and loses. Wow! All down to the start line reaction times there. Last pair out in this session, Thomas Haas, who was shut off with a problem in round 1, and Steve Naumantas, who are both putting in test hits in preparation for the heads-up one-shot qualifier later today. So no dial-ins, just run as quick and as fast as you can. The Valiant off like a scalded cat, but just wait for Steve's power to kick in. Wow! I'm sure they'll both be happy with those passes.
Well, as long as we just keep in the sevens, really. We've been struggling this morning, and the last one was a better with a 7.6. So just maybe a little bit quicker than that, and we're just testing more than anything, really, and just trying to keep going a bit quicker.
Now, in theory, you probably have got one of the quicker cars here if you could get it to work, because you've been out in Street Eliminator, and it's quite difficult to get that tune just right, isn't it? You've got so much power.
Well, it is. It's just sort of chops and changes all the time, and the track's different, and there's so many variables, and struggling with the tyres, getting it hooked up, and it just, 1 minute it's all right, next minute it's all over the place. So
yeah, through to the next round, quarterfinals up against Dave Russell in the van with no name. Should be good. I race with Dave in Super Pro all year round, so I know what he's like. He's good. Yeah, looking forward to it.
You seem to be hitting the numbers fairly closely.
Yeah, we've done a big, massive 4-link change this weekend. New tyres, loads of changes on the suspension, and we're just running with it at the moment. Just running with it and getting it ready for Hockenheim.
Well, 50-50 chance, so anything can happen. So as long as it's a good, safe race, we don't mind.
And with that huge supercharger sticking out of the bonnet, Dave's van is certainly not the usual bracket race vehicle. How did it all come about?
We started off in the Rover V8 Challenge, and it was my dad's work van, sitting around doing nothing. So we built that for Rover V8 Challenge, and then got fed up with the Rovers, and ended up putting a big block Chevy and that in there. So that's how it sort of all come about.
And then ended up with a supercharger on top as well.
Yes, that was Joe's fault at the end of the day, because originally I'd done the rest and he'd done the engines. It went a little bit overboard.
I've got a clutch car, so I'm pretty lucky to be still in the bracket type of thing, because that's normally something that a guy with a 2-speed power glider and a torque converter would rinse everybody with. Really, we'll see how it goes. Keep plugging away and keep trying.
And in addition to eliminations, there's also a plan afoot for the Rolls-Royce of Matt Wright.
I'm hoping, if the weather's good tomorrow, to put something together for charity. It's the poshest drag race in history, in a Rolls-Royce. And I think the race between Stephen Jimenez and myself, it'd be really good. If we can raise some money for charity, I think people are paid to see it.
Well, Matt's company, WeMoveYourCar.com, are heavily involved with the series and also provide expert safe transport for classic cars right across Europe.
Yeah, because we run classic cars ourselves, we've got a feel for it, so we appreciate it. It's something personal, so we understand that. So, we've got the enclosed trailer, we've got enclosed trucks, so we can go and pick a car up, it doesn't get wet, doesn't get damaged. All our staff are highly trained.
So, with 2 rounds completed in the bracket race, we're about to move into the Saturday evening qualifying session for the much anticipated heads-up race. This is where the high-power cars can make their mark. And one of the most extreme ones is undoubtedly the twin-turbo Bentley. But why are turbo cars becoming so popular? Race car builder John Webster of Webster Race Engineering explains what it is and why it's so suited to Doorslammer drag racing.
It's basically exhaust gas-driven compressor, which compresses the air going into the induction side of the engine. The beauty of the turbo is that it's not very consuming in terms of losses within the engine. You're using exhaust, which has already been spent, sort of thing, rather than supercharger, which consumes energy through the belt and the mechanisms and that kind of stuff. What's great about it for us is that it allows us to, especially with the electronics that are available now, it allows us to proportion the boost according to track conditions and chassis conditions, that kind of stuff, in quite small increments, as opposed to something like a supercharger that has to have engine speed to make boost, which ends up having a lot of inertia behind the engine, so it's difficult to control. Or nitrous, which when you introduce nitrous, although the systems are getting a lot better and evolving all the time, what we found with nitrous is that it kind of increases the torque very quickly, which makes it difficult to control stuff like the street tyres. We'd favour turbochargers, yeah, in most applications for this kind of class, yeah. The beauty of it as well is that where we have to do the street mileage, you're not using the energy from the turbo. The engine's relatively low compression. You can run the electronic fuel injection quite efficiently, so you can get good mileage. You're not fouling your plugs up, that kind of stuff, and you don't make any serious temperature on the road. So, you can drive this thing from here to Scotland and do 18, 20 to the gallon.
But what about supercharging?
It's not for me. I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there that think it's good. A lot of people like the look of them, you see. It's like overpowering thing that's sticking out of the bonnet and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure that if someone used electronic fluid injection on them and good electronic control on the ignition for power curves and stuff like that, that there's a place for them. It's whether or not you're willing to put the development and time into that sort of thing when the technology is already available somewhere else in turbos.
And until recently, blowers have been the power adder of choice for the Pro Mod class.
I think in Pro Mod, right now, I personally think turbos have got an advantage. I think the rules are a little bit skewed towards turbo cars. Whether or not that will change in the future, I don't know. Our knowledge base is with blown cars in Pro Modified, but looking into other classes like Street Eliminator or any sort of limited tyre class, I think the turbo cars are a better option because of the ability to control the power delivery.
We're about to go into the nail-biting one-shot qualifying session for tomorrow's heads-up race, and we've at least one full-spec Pro Mod car entered. With 32 cars and just 16 places available on the ladder, competition is going to be fierce, with half the field not making it through to eliminations. So, with Show and Shine and the MOPAR Euronats in full swing, join us after the break for more Top Sportsman action. Welcome back to UK Top Sportsman. It's Saturday evening and this is what the really fast cars, or heavy hitters as we call them, are waiting for. The one-shot qualifier for the heads-up race. Only 16 spots available, and with 36 teams here, just to qualify will be tough. After 16 cars have run, the scoreboards will display the bump spot, which will work its way down over the session. Run slower than the bump spot and you're out. It's as simple as that. Chris Newsom with his MG ZS running alongside the 68 Barracuda of Royden Mitchell here. Chris runs a 9.44. He might be safe, but I don't think Royden will be in the show with his 10.65. Being a one-shot qualifier, you have to make this count, and nerves play a part. Bernie Newbury in the 67 Beetle and Jeff Cowley with the 68 Nova. Problems in the right lane with the big Nova stumbling on the hit. Flashes and flames out the back of Bernie's Beetle means an early shut-off. Top-end charge from Jeff. We'll have to see if he's done enough. Tom Atkinson in the Time is Money Cortina estate, and the first of our heavy hitters, as it were, Jeff Bull Racing Chevy S10, 760 cubic inches or 12.5 litres. Belinda Bull behind the wheel. Remember, these cars usually race in completely different classes. Top Sportsman is the only time you'll see them running together. Belinda into the number 1 slot and almost running a 6, and Tom should be safely in there as well. Steve Naumantas in the Bentley Continental GT, packing a twin-turbo assisted Chevy V8, around 3,000 plus horsepower, remember. The crews are still learning the car. Getting it to hook is essential, not simply kicking the tyres loose. Left lane, Nick Curtis in Grumpy's Dodge. Nick leaves the lights first, but just look at the Bentley storm into the picture. Steve looks to be off the power at the top end. 8.59 at 150, not what they were looking for, but they should qualify. Nick will have to wait and see. Steve's team looking perplexed. Pete Ewell in the Pacemaker Chevelle, Jack Brewster in the Just Mustard Pontiac Firebird, both packing around 580 cubic inches of Chevy V8 power. Interesting one here. At the launch, note the contrasting suspension and the chassis setups. This is mainly due to weight transfer. Jack's Pontiac, being lighter, makes full use of that, running 8.31 at 164 against Pete's 9.26 at 144. Burnout this time round for Kev Perkins. Not that it seemed to bother him too much in the bracket side of things. Darren Piet's Mark III Cortina running a 6-litre Rover-based V8 with nitrous. Kev's Oldsmobile Cutlass running big block Chevy power. In NHRA Pro Stock, the old Cutlass dominated for years in the hands of Warren Johnson and is still pretty good now. Kev looks to be on a good run here. Come to mention it, so does Darren. Up they go. 7.63 at 179 for Kev and 8.53 for Darren. Should see them both in the big show. All the way from Switzerland to race with us this weekend, Thomas Haas in the Plymouth Valiant. Next to Brian Pateman in the red 1968 Pontiac Firebird. Thomas Haas running 588 cubic inches of Chrysler Pro Stock derived naturally aspirated V8. Should run low 8s. You can't tell what Brian has for us. That all depends on how much nitrous he uses. Just enough is probably the answer. Well, very nice side-by-side pairing this one. But what do they run? An 8.13 at 164 for Thomas and an 8.74 at 155 for Brian means we should see them both tomorrow. Terry Robbins in his all-steel Chevy S10. And another heavy hitter in the form of Steve Kellett's 2007 twin pro-charged big block Ford Mustang, producing some 2,800 horsepower. Remember that although qualifying positions are important, teams need to make sure they qualify, so some will only do enough to get in rather than risk breaking parts pushing too hard or blowing the tyres away at the hit. Steve feeding the power in up the track rather than pushing too hard off the start line. Nice 8.48 at 163, should do that for Steve. Terry's going to be waiting for the bump spot. Des Taylor in his immaculate Motown Gold Nova SS on a solo pass. Great to see Des join us here for the UK Top Sportsman at the MOPAR EURONATIONALS. Well, 126 is his speed, but 10.89, I think that will be outside the show. Remember, less than half our competitors will make the eliminations field. Rob Smallworth in his pretty 55 Chevy Bel Air takes on Fred Hone in his Granada Scorpio. Both teams very experienced in heads-up Doorslammer racing. Nice rolling burnouts backing up in the freshly laid rubber tracks for maximum grip. From here on, the bump spot will be displayed on the scoreboard. But problems for Fred off the start line. I kind of suspect the nitrous system or lack of it may be the cause. It kind of fell over on the hit and looks really lazy. 7.63 at 178 for Rob Smallworth sees him in a number 2 spot currently. Neil Hunter in his 1995 Pontiac Firebird and Tim Mugridge in the 1968 Camaro, both potential 7-second players. Great launch there from Neil, a bit of a death smoke from Tim. Let's hope that's nothing too serious. Good runs from the pair of them and both safely in at number 3 and number 4 spots. In car here with Tim Mugridge working up through the gears nicely, 2 hands back on the wheel, then reaches for the parachute release to slow him down from 175 miles per hour. John Turner's Plymouth Barracuda and Lee Darby's DKM Construction 1950s truck. What an eclectic mix of body styles in UK Top Sportsman, really adds to the flavour. As we pan up the finish line, keep a lookout for the bump spot. Started out at 10.99, I believe. Now it's down to 10.44. Great run there from Lee. He'll be happy with that. And John running consistently as ever. Tyler Letchford's 1968 Camaro next. Good launch. Ouch, that sounds like it didn't shift. They'll not be happy at all as they go up to the line. A 10.38. That's virtually a 7-second car. Lee Huxley, Dark Horse Mustang, Huxley Motorsports. Again, nice launch. You can see the bumps now down to 9.46. This means that Lee's 9.57 will not see him qualify. Matt Wright's twin-turbo Rolls-Royce means business here tonight. The team's had its fair share of teething problems with the car. In the dyno room it works perfectly, but on track it has its own ideas. The front wing looks to be working its way loose there, and a nice conservative 8.94 at 157 sees him qualified at the moment. The bump spot's currently at 9.46. Well, this is the first time this car has been seen on the track all weekend. Rick Garrett at the wheel of the family-run pro-modified Willys Coupe. Nice controlled burnout and a very slick and professional operation. It's great to have the Garretts race with us in UK Top Sportsman. Rick's sons are always out there crewing. 740 cubic inches with a 3-stage nitrous system purging the bottle pressure to where he wants it. Line up nice and straight in the staging beams. And a nice launch, no tyre shake. Hits his shift points. And up to the line. A 647 at 214. Well, let's watch that again. And you can see the importance of being lined up straight as the front wheels are off the ground on the launch. Not surprisingly, Rick takes the #1 qualifying spot. Well done to Rick and the boys, and also to Belinda Bull in at #2 with that storming 7.03. Jeff Bull Power got the job done for Belinda.
Yeah, I am today absolutely delighted, yeah, 7.03 and it is a PB, yeah.
How much of that is down to your driving and how much is the engine?
I am just along for the ride, to be quite honest, yeah. It is all down to my crewman and the help I've had today. There's still some tiny little bits of tuning to be done, but we're getting there. We're heading in the right direction. We're getting what we were looking for this weekend, and we were hoping to have got it by Friday night, but obviously that didn't happen.
But #1 spot went, of course, to the Pro Mod Willys of Rick Garrett with this storming 6.51 second run at 214 miles per hour.
It's going really well. We've dialed it down just a touch because obviously there's no need to go full guns blazing, so to speak. Hopefully, if the weather allows us to, we'll turn the tune back to as it was and get back into the 30s. There's definitely more in the car yet. I mean, the engine has been 616s when Roger Johansson owned it. Where we score is with this car. I mean, you know, it just behaves so well, and it's very, very rare we get tar shake or anything like that. You know, it's just such a good working car. So yeah, but obviously power does come into it also, but it's not that as important with this car.
Well, it's Sunday morning and the plan for today is to run the full heads-up eliminations as well as the remaining rounds of the bracket race. But the weather is not promising. The more hardy race fans are arriving, the cars are towed down the fire-up road ready to race, but the first spots of rain are already falling. And unlike circuit cars, there is no way these extreme horsepower machines can run if the specially prepped track surface is even slightly damp. It's like driving on ice. Well, the rain got heavier and continued all day, so unfortunately no more racing could take place. But everyone agreed that even with this, the event had been a great success and something to look forward to next year.